David, William, Pierce, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be exploring Tattva 0, the heart of reality. This video arrives at perhaps the most important and possibly most challenging teaching in the entire map of the 36 Tattvas. If you haven't watched the previous 7 videos on the Tattva system, this is the final, 8th concluding video. Because in the previous ones, we spent a lot of time moving through the physical world, then through the mind, through the limitations of individuality and Maya, and eventually landing at Shakti and Shiva. So you might reasonably assume that Shiva is where this Tattva map ends. But there is one more esoteric, rarely taught, seldom understood Tattva, and that is Tattva 0, the heart, Hridaya. Though it's not really one more, and that's why it's numbered 0, because it doesn't sit at the top of the hierarchy like the rest. It surrounds the rest, permeates them, encompasses the entire thing. That is why it's Tattva 0. Imagine the 36 Tattvas as a map of reality. At one end, we have the incredibly diverse world we experience every day, our bodies, thoughts, emotions, what we experience through sight, touch, sound, taste, and smell. Then at the other end, we have pure, transcendent consciousness as Shiva, Tattva number 1, and then everything that exists in between. So you might think, therefore, that the ultimate reality must be somewhere beyond all of those things, maybe up there. Tattva system can work that way too. But Tantra presents us with a problem. Because if something is beyond the universe, then in some sense it excludes the universe. There is God over here, and then creation over there. So the Tantrikas made a rather bold move, saying that ultimate reality cannot merely transcend everything, it must also encompass everything. And that is why it's Tattva 0. It is this all-encompassing idea. You can imagine the Tattva map as a series of points inside a circle. Shiva may be the highest point within the hierarchy, but Hridaya is the circle containing the entire map. Nothing exists outside of it. And this is the supreme paradox, this central paradox of Tantric teachings. The heart is everything, and yet it is so much more than everything that's expressed. It expresses itself as the substance of every experience that you have, while simultaneously being greater than the sum of all those experiences. I like to think of it like a dream. So in a dream, you have different characters, you have different scenarios, settings, aspects, all of these different elements of the dream, and the summation of all of those elements don't equate to the totality of you, the dreamer. They're all different parts, different aspects of that one consciousness, which is you. And it's the same idea. And because of this complexity in trying to understand this, it's why Tantra uses many names for this entity, this Hridaya, the heart, Sara, the essence, Spanda, the vibration, Urmi, the wave, and my personal current favorite, Yamala, the couple, Shiva and Shakti in perfect fusion. Because we're trying to use language to describe something language can't completely contain. That's why there's so many names to describe it. It's a little like trying to explain what being in love feels like. I can give you poetry, I can give you neuroscience, metaphor, philosophy, but none of those things are really an adequate description of the feeling of love that you experience. And so when you're actually in love, nobody needs to convince you that you are. You simply know it through and through, balls to bones, if you know that reference. So in the Tantric tradition, it's pointing towards something similar here, that the heart isn't primarily an idea you're supposed to believe in, it's a reality that can be recognized. This also introduces a fascinating idea of higher non-duality. Ordinary non-duality can sometimes sound like there is no separation, everything is one, but there's an obvious issue with that, because right now you probably don't experience yourself as me. You have your own experience. You experience yourself as you. You have your thoughts, whereas I have mine. Your body ends somewhere and the rest of the world begins there. You experience love and conflict, pleasure and pain, closeness and separation. Tantra doesn't need to pretend that any of that isn't happening. Instead, higher non-duality says that both unity and duality exist within a reality large enough to contain them both. Think of it like an ocean. At one level, there are clearly different waves. Some big, some small, some lasting minutes, some lasting moments. Their differences are real, but their separation is ultimately not real. Every wave has always been water. Higher non-duality doesn't require us to deny the wave in order to recognize the ocean. It allows us to hold both truths simultaneously. This idea that everything is equally divine takes us somewhere quite radical. If everything arises within the heart, then nothing exists outside the divine, not your meditation, and somehow not that argument with your partner. That beautiful sunset is divine, but equally so is the rubbish on the pavement. That joy that fuels you is equally as divine as the grief that strickens you. The teaching says that the same ultimate reality is equally present in all things. Now, this doesn't mean that every experience is equally pleasurable or desirable or useful. And it certainly doesn't mean that everything is the same. It means that nothing is excluded from reality. The contraction is not somehow less real, less divine, less love, less God than the expansion. That difficult conversation, perhaps with your partner, a loved one, a family member, work colleague, isn't happening outside of God, while the meditation retreat and the yoga class that you go to and the sound bath and breathwork journey that you enjoy is God. It's all occurring within Hridaya, the heart, Tattva 0, and that completely can change what spiritual practice becomes for you. Instead of asking, how do I escape ordinary life and get back to that divine consciousness, that bliss state, the question becomes, can I recognize the heart, the couple, here too in this pain, in this challenge? And this might be something incredibly valuable from this teaching for you. If everything is one, you might imagine awakening eventually means all differences disappear, but Tantra says almost the opposite. It's diversity that we celebrate. Every person, every creature experience is valuable because they express the same reality differently. Every sentient being is described as expressing their godliness in a unique way that has never appeared before and will never appear in the same way again. Think about music. A symphony doesn't become beautiful because every instrument plays the same note. No, the cellos, the violins, the drum remains drumming. Their difference is precisely what allows the music to exist. Likewise, recognizing our shared essence doesn't require erasing our individuality. Unity doesn't require sameness. Your partner doesn't need to become more like you for you to recognize the same heart expressing itself through them. Someone can disagree with you and still belong to the same reality, the same divinity, the same heart, the same couple. You can even experience separation while recognizing that the experience of separation itself is arising within something that was never divided. There's one final challenge, though. Everything I've said can be understood intellectually. You can nod along and think, yes, I completely understand this, totally got it, nailed it. I am liberated, I am awakened. But that's not what the tradition is ultimately interested in. The mystical perception being described here is called trans-rational, because ordinary conceptual reasoning cannot fully contain it. There can be moments when the boundary between yourself and life seems to disappear, perhaps during meditation, intimacy, nature, sirens galore, psychedelics, and simply an inexplicable moment of presence. Suddenly, you don't merely believe that you're connected to everything. You actually experience it. You have a taste of something more, something beyond, something divine. But even that isn't the destination, because the experiences come and go. You can have the most extraordinary spiritual experience of your life on a Sunday and be furious that something's happened on a Monday. The glimpse matters because it shows you what's possible. But there's something deeper that's being invited in that taste, and that's abiding recognition. The whole philosophy of tantric teaching is, can you not just experience that through some sort of spiritual moment, but can you bring that moment into your everyday? The teaching says that although the perception of one divinity pulsating through existence may initially arise through grace, Shaktipata, the descent of power, it becomes cultivated and firmly rooted through spiritual practice. And I think that's where this teaching can become incredibly practical. The question isn't how many transcendent experiences can you collect in your life. It's whether the recognition survives contact with your ordinary life. Can you go to a breathwork class on a Monday evening and allow that experience to permeate the rest of your week, rather than completely drop out of it the moment you leave and step back into your everyday life? Can you recognize hridaya, the heart, when your relationship is difficult? When your plans don't work? When you're frightened? When someone disappoints you, or you're pursuing something you desperately want and aren't seeing the results you crave? Can you recognize that heart in another person without requiring them to become more like you? Recognizing it in yourself when you don't particularly like the version of you that's showing up that day. Rather than chastising yourself, can you return to the heart, hridaya, to the couple, yamala, the wave, urmi, spanda, the vibration? That perhaps is where spiritual insight starts becoming spiritual embodiment. Tattva 0 gives us the context for the entire tantric map. There is one ultimate reality expressing itself through every form while simultaneously exceeding every form. Difference remains real. Diversity remains beautiful. Even the experience of duality has its place, but nothing, not your body, your relationship, your pleasure, pain, contraction, expansion, none of it, and all of it, occurs outside at the heart. An awakening isn't necessarily about finding something more sacred than the life you're already living. It may be about becoming increasingly capable of recognizing the sacred within the life that you're already living. If you'd like to see what these teachings look like in real life rather than simply understanding them intellectually, I will link this week's newsletter at the end of this video, where I share how this study revealed itself through my own lived experience this week. And if you're ready to apply these teachings to your own life, then I invite you to follow the link in the description. You can join a weekly class. You can go on your own transformational journey. I'm going to start sharing these teachings and how to apply them through evolved yoga of manifestation. Seeing it kind of like a master's in yoga, not just theory, but application. If something stayed with you from this video, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what landed for you. You can find me on Substack for my weekly newsletter, or on Instagram for bite-sized insights into love, life, and beyond. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next transmission. Cheers.